Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Utility Trailblazers. Today, we have a guest named Crystal Meadow. She holds the position of Utility Director Partnership at Enchanted Rocks and has more than 20 years of experience. She holds extensive experience in energy efficiency industry, specializing in client management, budget management, and multiple utility contracts and projects she has executed. She serves on the board of BE Projects, a non-profit organization dedicated to training the next generations, green workforce, and creating equitable pathway for green jobs. So, welcome to our podcast, Crystal.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So, to start with, Crystal, can you give us your little about your background in energy efficiency and things like that? What you have done?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, that I've been working with utilities in the energy sector for over 22 years now. I initially started designing energy efficiency programs for utilities in both residential and commercial industrial sectors. After 11 years, I transitioned to working on demand response programs and AMI smart meter deployment. And now I work at Enchanted Rocks. So we're a full turnkey microgrid developer, and my role there is to help utilities develop resiliency as a service programs for their large C&I customers. So this means when a host customer is not using the microgrid due to an outage or any type of grid disturbance, the utility can actually dispatch the energy back to the grid when there are shortfalls in capacity.
That's great, Crystal. So, how are you related with managing the energy transition? What kind of, things you have seen in last 10, 15 years that are happening around energy transitions within industry?
Yeah, sure. There is definitely a lot of things happening with the energy transition recently. So distributed energy resources like dual purpose microgrids play a pivotal role in stabilizing the grid and transforming the energy landscape. Our dual purpose microgrids can support the grid at unstable times, so they can be dispatched in advance or on call during emergency situations in under 10 seconds. So extremely valuable in times where there additional capacity is needed for planned or unplanned events.
Got that. Got that. And I know, the microgrids are, being being a mainstream at many places because of the renewable energies, and the people are becoming very conscious about the sustainable energy. So, can you provide an overview of, current state of energy transitions in utility sector and how it's impacting grid reliability?
Sure. The utilities are faced with multiple challenges to provide adequate power to their customers. So outside of the energy transition, there already are concerns of, just natural load growth, aging infrastructure, and, frequent, more severe weather events that we're seeing year over year now. And as far as the, coupling that with the energy transition, we're seeing a lot more renewable energy, which is intermittent, and then also the retirement of coal and nuclear plants, an early retirement of coal and nuclear plants to move towards those carbon neutral goals, in addition to electrification of everything. So all of those have an impact on, balancing the peak demand and keeping that capacity in balance. So it makes it extremely hard for grid operators to forecast that capacity.
And just to add to that, Crystal, one logical question there. Do you see, because of EV coming up and all these electrification of things happening, there is a more pressure on the grid, because the grids have been developed historically, just to serve the domestic, industrial, and commercial. The grid was not designed to handle the kind of demand that is coming from EV nowadays. So, do you see any any insights or any trend happening because of that?
Yeah, the grid, our system was largely built back in the 1960s and 70s, where we certainly didn't have the influx of electric vehicles at that time. That grid was also had an anticipated lifespan of about 50 years. So sure, there's been a lot of infrastructure updates and weatherization updates during that time, but the electrification of everything comes with its own challenges. A lot of fleet vehicles, as well as just homeowner electric vehicles, are being charged at night. So that is skewing the peak demand times, and it's just putting an overall larger strain on the grid for the need of additional capacity. There's more frequent outages. There are risks to business continuity. So some businesses are deterring the decision to electrify altogether, because if they can't come in for work the next morning and have their fleet fully charged, they don't want to risk that business continuity.
Absolutely. And because of this, what specific challenges utilities are facing in adopting the growth of renewable energy and increased electrification?
Yeah, the high solar adoption creates a challenge for utilities to balance that supply and demand on the grid. This is due to the increased need for electricity generators to quickly ramp up energy production when it's not a blue sky day or when the sun is down, and the contribution to photovoltaic falls. It's the same situation when the wind isn't blowing for wind turbines. So there are, battery energy storage systems known as BESS in the industry, and they are an option to harness that power. The BESS systems do come with a significant cost to project economics, so sometimes that's not an option for all businesses or utility scale solar paired with that battery storage. Another issue with the large battery storage is that they're typically 4 hours of storage time, and so that limits some applications at this time.
Got that. Got that. Absolutely makes sense. So now, how the microgrids are evolving beyond, backup power and generation, power like backup power generation, and becoming practical alternative to grid expansion. And do you see like any other application of microgrids, that is a trend in the industry?
Yeah, I think as far as going beyond the backup power generation, we're seeing rapid expansion in power intensive sectors such as data centers, manufacturing, and EV charging. So this is leading to prolonged delays in securing adequate grid power, which limits businesses to critical choices. They can either wait for grid power, relocate, or adopt on-site generation. Now, in some cases, there are delays of 3 or more years for that grid power to come, for the interconnection process, go through the whole interconnection queue with the utility. And there's sometimes inability for the utility to commit to delivering that 24/7 firm power to those new businesses. So with that, a bridge to grid power solution can provide on-site generation prior to the grid interconnection. So utilities are finding this useful because bridge power can reliably deliver utility grade power before and after the interconnection process. This allows businesses to come in and provide economic growth in those areas as well. The utilities want those new customers to come into their service territory, and so this is providing a good solution. The way that bridge to grid power works is once the grid interconnection is completed, the on-site microgrid technology can be removed with no long-term impacts to the site, or it can remain on-site to provide local power resiliency and support the grid with flexible power capacity.
Absolutely, Crystal. So we have a lot of audience, from the electric cooperatives, electric utilities. So the utility executives who are trying to, see the trend in their areas about, more and more microgrids are coming up, and they are seeing that impact on their grid. What would you advise, Crystal? You have already seen, how this trend is going on in market. So what will be your guidance? What will be your advice to those executives to what should they look out for?
Sure. So there's, a big move right now to go towards carbon neutrality. And that's one reason where they're, decommissioning and retiring those coal plants or anything that's not completely carbon neutral. These natural gas microgrids are not completely carbon neutral, but they have very low local emissions. And so they are a good source to be kind of a bridge power in that way, a bridge fuel, if you will, to moving all the way to carbon neutrality. There's also renewable natural gas as an option for companies, businesses, or utilities that do want to be 100% carbon neutral. So I think that's a good plan for the microgrids to be able to provide that flexible capacity, and that could be dispatched within seconds.
Sure.
So we're seeing it used in different ways with utilities. They're either, if they have a resiliency as a service program, there are different host customers in their service territory. That could be data centers, hospitals, wastewater treatment. We see a lot of those, any kind of critical infrastructure, anyone that really can't go without, long-term power. So those can be dispatched all within the service territory from the utility. So if that's, a few hundred megawatts, then that's a lot of additional capacity they can put on the grid at seconds notice. Another way they structure it is that a utility, instead of having that resiliency as a service program offering for their customers, the utility can just own the assets, and they can have that sometimes situated at near a water treatment plant or a decommissioned power plant, to where they can just turn the switch on whenever, call that dispatch whenever they need. So that's been a really good option, and we've seen a lot of success that way with utilities.
Sure, this the insights you have got will really help a lot of utility executives when they are considering the microgrids and they are seeing the trends within their territories around microgrids. We really appreciate your insights, Crystal. These are the great insights and learnings you have shared with all of us. Thank you very much for participating in Utility Trailblazers today. And we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.